Welcome all to the Pro Football Radio Podcast. This is your co-host, Jay Chima, with pride and joy of Merrimack, New Hampshire, the Puma. What's up, man?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good, living the dream, living that 2-0 life as a Miami Dolphins fan. It was a little interesting down the stretch on Sunday Night Football, but a win is a win. Proud of the defense. We'll get a little bit more towards that in the game breakdown for Broncos, Dolphins. But how are you doing, Jay?
Well, I'm not doing so great because my New England Patriots are now 0-2. And, it's not in the rundown, but we're going to get to it. I've got some things to say about the Patriots. I'm not happy about it. But it dawned on me the other day, and let me run this by you because, I always like to run these things by you to see if I'm crazy or if the same person on the podcast can reel me in.
Okay.
We always say that Bill Belichick really doesn't understand modern day offenses, and that's nothing new, right? But is there a chance he doesn't understand modern day defenses as well? Because when I'm watching that game the other day, he basically played a prevent defense against the Miami Dolphins with three safeties back for like 90% of the game.
Uh-huh.
Dude, what are you doing, dog? Like, that's not how. Like, all you're doing at that point is hoping you don't get blown out. Like, there's no attacking going on. Like, there's no you gotta have an actual game plan. You're just like, we'll just keep it around. Hopefully around 27, and then Tom Brady will come back and we'll win 31-27. Oh, unfortunately, we don't have Tom Brady. We got McCorkle on the other side. So I'm watching this game the other day, and I'm just getting more and more mad at some of the decisions, and I'm getting especially mad that Mike McDaniels is running coaching circles around Bill Belichick, right? But I just feel in today's modern, NFL, there really is no stopping somebody. It's turnovers and sacks. Like, that's really how defense is played in today's NFL. There's no hey, let's just stop them and see what happens, unless you're playing a really bad team. But most modern offenses, you don't stop them. You either turn them over or you have big sacks. So he's not being aggressive with his defensive planning. He's just sitting back, hoping he doesn't get blown out. And I'm just for a loss for words where this team is headed. And this week we got the Jets. If for some reason we lose to the Jets, I can only imagine the uproar in New England, the uproar with me. I might not be able to go function as a normal human being for the next 2-3 days after that.
Yeah, I mean, if that's going to happen, that's going to happen on the back of Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, and that defense, because Zach Wilson clearly throwing the ball is still an adventure. Oh, God, I love this media package. It's great. But yeah, I was kind of surprised about the Pats on Sunday night. I was expecting, Tua to have a little bit more of a rougher time in the back in the pocket, especially without Teron Armstead back.
Good point.
There.
Really good point, Puma. I'm sorry to cut you off there, but I was looking at some of the next gen stats for Tua coming out of that game. You understand, he only had about 1.9 seconds to get the ball out of his hands, right? His protection wasn't the best. But the fact that he was able to get the ball out so quickly means he knew exactly what he's looking at. He was looking at that defense and he was like, oh yeah, I know what's happening here. I can get the ball out within a 1.9 second, 2 seconds, or whatever it is. The fact that he only got sacked once and the fact that he consistently moved the ball down the field means that he wasn't Bill Belichick wasn't disguising, and Tua was completely reading the defense to a T, reading it like a book, bro.
Yeah. No, again, I was really surprised about the offensive line, and that's been to me the weakest link on this team next to the secondary up until this season. So it's refreshing to see all this play out and come together. But I mean, Jay, it could be worse. You could be a Browns fan right now. You could be.
Yes, it could be much worse. Before we move on, a quick preview of the Jets Patriots. We all expect the Patriots to win, obviously, right? Zach Wilson. We all, Puma, let's be real about this. Are you saying right now the Jets can win that game?
I think so. And I think so. I'm saying Puma.
Stop it.
I'm only saying this because I mean, we saw what 31-year-old two knee surgery Raheem Mostert did on the ground against New England on Sunday night, right?
But that's scheme, though.
And
that's
Garrett,
scheme.
Yeah, but that's the one good thing that the Jets can do is run the football. I mean, the over-under this game is the mid-30s. The spread is 3. You have Garrett Wilson already coming out saying this is essentially our Super Bowl to snap this streak. they're all howling mad after getting embarrassed on the 4:00 time frame against the Dallas Cowboys, which granted, it's the Dallas Cowboy defense against Zach Wilson, who's still throwing the football as an adventure. Yet Jet fans are still going to hold on to the fact that he's salvageable because Captain Ayahuasca himself has been calling him every day. But the fact of the matter is this team can, like, they have game changers in that backfield, and Dalvin Cook, which, by the way, the Vikings are really friggin' missing him right now, and Breece Hall, even still coming off of that knee surgery. I expect them to pound the rock a ton and really just unleash that defense on Mac Jones, which, granted, the offensive line I thought held up great against the Eagles week 1, but like week 2 against the Dolphins, like the Dolphins kind of had their way with that offensive line. So, and that's the defensive line for the Dolphins had their way. So I think it's going to be a close game. I would not be shocked if the Jets, eked out a win. So, like, to be Mr. Contrarian, I'll take the Jets to win and snap that streak.
Do you understand what you're saying here, Puma? Like, they've lost to us. Was it 14 or 15 straight times? Whatever the number is. They haven't beat us since like 2005. Like, there's something about the New York Jets. When they play the New England Patriots, they cannot beat us. Like, I'm not saying we're good. The Patriots are not a good football team, Puma. I understand that. But I will die on this hill, Puma, that we will not lose to the freaking New York Jets. We will not do it. All right. And if we do, it's gonna be really, really bad. Like, it's people on radio today in Boston, Felger and Maz, one of my favorite shows, said if you lose to the Jets on Sunday, you're on the hot seat. Like, that's officially the first time I've heard somebody definitively say, and that's Michael Felger on 98.5, saying if you lose to the Jets, you're on the hot seat Monday morning.
Yeah. But Jay, like, what about this offense has inspired confidence against this Jets defense, which is really good. Like, there's no dynamic playmakers. Nobody can stretch the field. And Ramondre Stevenson couldn't even run against a defense in the Dolphins that gave up like 230 yards rushing against Austin Eckler week 1.
Well, I'm not saying that we're going to outscore them. I'm saying it's going to be a 3-3 game like it was last year, and then somehow the Jets are going to crap all over themselves. Like, you remember that game, right? Like, it was
I do.
Fourth quarter, somehow Robert Saleh all game long doesn't kick it to Marcus Jones, but for some reason in the fourth quarter he decides to kick it to Marcus Jones when the game is on the line, and then we just walk in for a touchdown. Game over at that point. All I'm saying is Robert Saleh is a moronic head coach. I have little to no faith in him, and on top of that, the Jets are a loser franchise. So I just do not foresee this is the one time I can honestly definitively say we're going to win no matter what. Like, this is the old school Patriots. Like, no matter who it is.
I can't
no matter who it is, we're being the Jets, all right?
To see what happens. I'm so glad I got, Sunday ticket just to see this. just to live tweet this.
Living in Connecticut, you probably will get that game anyways.
It kind of depends. Because I'm kind of like in the weird spot, like, in the part
Giants
of
the Giants playing Thursday night, so literally and the Jets are playing the Patriots. There's no other like local game to even play. Right?
Fair enough. I don't know. I live in like the friggin' twilight zone anyways on any given day. So who knows? But can't wait.
All right, that should be fun. But let's talk about some stuff from last night on Monday Night Football. The Browns lost to the Steelers 26-22, I believe was the final score, in a game that was fairly interesting. I texted this to you last night a couple of times that it was so sloppy that was interesting. It was actually entertaining with all the crazy stuff happening. So, the game was in the balance. The Browns could have won it. Deshaun Watson could come through and it could have, led the Browns to victory, but he didn't. So today the narrative is Deshaun Watson a jag? Just a guy?
Yeah, he is just a guy. I mean, when Nick Chubb went out with that, devastating knee injury, which, best of luck, Nick Chubb, with that knee. That's the same one that he blew out in Georgia coming out of college, and that's why he fell to the second round. But, I mean, when the game was on the line, like 2019, Deshaun Watson was not walking through that door. I mean, I've never seen this before, Jay, where a quarterback gets not one, but two, like, personal foul, like face mask penalties on a stiff arm. Like, I've never seen that before. He did one of the cardinal sins. He checked it off he pushed the ref, and somehow he still stayed in the game. But not only that, like, they were driving, like they had the lead at the time. They just had to salt this game away. He takes a sack that pushes them out of field goal range, and they have to punt, and then it just becomes an adventure after that. He takes another sack, and then he fumbles, and TJ Watt walks it in the end zone for a touchdown. Like it was absolutely brutal. I mean, the team tried to rally around, the Chubb injury to eke out a win and go 2-0, but it's like Watson wasn't there to get the memo and to do his job and get all this guaranteed money that he's paid for. And this is really on the Haslams. Like you got what you fucking paid for. And, moving forward, this has to be probably the worst contract, not in just NFL history. Like this is probably right up there with like Bobby Bonilla in like Major League Baseball. Like, this is
Daniel Jones contract.
Daniel Jones contract. Like, I mean, he hasn't, last year, okay, he was suspended like 6 games, or he came back for the last 6 games of the year. And the common theme was, okay, man, like he had a lot of rust. He hasn't played in over a year. He's going to have a full off season and he'll get installed with this offense. But like, I mean, you were sending me this during OTAs, like practices were an adventure with this guy. And then preseason looked bad. And then last night in primetime, the first pass of the game was a pick 6. So to me, he's a jag. He's just a guy.
So you're writing him off. You're saying Deshaun
yes.
Watson is done. You're no more comeback. Puma taking a definitive stance here. Deshaun Watson is done. Okay.
Especially in this offense, Jay. Like a lot of this is based on timing and getting the ball out quick. And it's a run first offense. And like they kind of set it up for the play action, obviously. But like he's holding on the ball way too long. And that's not going to work in this offense. Whether or not it's your Ford back there, they bring back Kareem Hunt, or they take my ligaments out of my knee and give them to Nick Chubb and put some platelet-rich plasma in there. Like, he's not operating within the confines of this offense. And to me, at this point, like, I've seen enough, especially from last year to now. He's a jag.
Have you, though? Have you seen enough? Because, like, last year he played, 5 games, right? And that's off the suspension. 6 games?
6.
Okay. Regardless,
6 games, they neutralized Chubb to put the ball in his hands, and that was an adventure.
Yeah, but at that point, they were basically out of it, right? So let's just see what we got in Deshaun Watson, try to get him up to speed, right? This year, we're 2 games in, and call me crazy, Puma, but I saw some flashes of greatness out of him the other night. Like, I saw the zip on the ball. I saw some of those plays where he was able to extend it. Now, obviously, he didn't complete those plays, and, he still has some ways to go, but I saw a throw he made the other day. It was on a line. I was like, oh, that's 2019 Deshaun Watson. So listen, I still think we are a little too early on this. Deshaun Watson is done train. Like all of a sudden this morning, everybody woke up and was like, you know what? Today's the day we're gonna be like Deshaun Watson's done, because that's the national narrative, right? I don't know how much this has to do with the actual like off the field stuff and everybody's out to like get him now, but I don't know. I saw him play last night. I thought he was all right. I thought for the most part of the sloppy game from both the Browns and the Steelers. So I'm going to give him some more time and see what happens.
I mean, I'll say this much, though, too. Like, we and me especially, like, I was piling on Josh Allen and was coming around to, like, hey, like, this dude is just being a moron with the ball and is costing his team victories. Like, yeah, I saw flashes, too. But 2019, Deshaun Watson did not show up to salt that game away. He was an idiot. He did stuff that you're not supposed to do at any level of football. And, again, like, you had 6 games, you had a whole offseason, you had OTAs, and you had preseason. And I'll concede that not a lot of the starters started in preseason. That's been like league wide. I understand that, but like you have the lead. Ford has been pounding the rock. All you have to do is just ball security and no sacks. Like it's almost like the 2-minute drill the whole time. And he just completely did not do that, held on the ball way too long. And it's not like, this division is getting any easier. Like they're going to face Pittsburgh again. Baltimore is looking really froggy right now. And I guess like the big question mark now is the Bengals at this point, which we're going to get to a little bit later on. But like for me, like week 2, September 19th at 8 p.m. Yeah, to me, he's a jag.
So what do you recommend the Browns do here? Because now they're stuck in this contract. I mean, he's owed $45 million per year guaranteed for the next 3. So if he really is a jag, then the Browns are in a horrendous situation, which like I said, I don't agree with you. He's a jag just yet. Let's wait it out and see what happens. But what's supposed to get the game plan here now? Like, just what? You're going to suck for the next 3 years with Deshaun Watson?
I mean, essentially, yeah. I mean, I have to go look at the contract and see like when they can, air quote, get out of this without having to eat like a big old piece of humble pie known as a cap hit. But like the Haslams made their bed and climbed into this. And, there's not a whole lot of sympathy going around, not just from like fans of the NFL, but owners either, because this is the reason why like owners were hesitant on giving like fully guaranteed contracts to Lamar Jackson is like nonsense like this. So they're gonna have to. They made their bed. They're gonna have to stick with this. It to me, from what it sounds like, is like the Haslams pulled like a Dan Snyder and just force fed this down the coaching staff's throat and said, "Listen, like Baker Mayfield's a jag. We're gonna go to this guy with all these off-field issues and hasn't played in a full season and see what happens." And this, you reap what you sow type of deal. So I don't know what else they could do.
Friend of the show, imposing Chris with some amazing advice. He's like William Shakespeare out here. Flashes in the distance doesn't mean a diamond. Could just be glass in the desert. Wow. What is it? Was a poetry snaps? Is that what they do?
Yeah, exactly. But he's not wrong. That's fool's gold. It's fool's gold. And what's I was thinking about this on the truck ride home from doing an errand today. It's like, what kind of shape would the Atlanta Falcons be in right now if they actually pulled the trigger on this? Because they got those first round draft picks from Cleveland, right? So like they're obviously like using that to restock their war chest of stripping it down to the studs because they were in cap hell for a couple of years. So I mean, what would the Falcons look like right now? Like I don't even want to know.
I have no idea.
They can probably jump out of the luxury box at this point.
Because Desmond Ridder played all right. I mean, part of the reason why the Falcons are 2-0 right now is because they're getting good, not good, but competent quarterback play. And you've got such a strong running attack with Bijan Robinson. Like, he'll be all right. He'll be fine. All right, let's move on to some Sunday Night Football. Let's move on to Week 3, Puma. The New York Giants are traveling to San Fran to take on the 49ers. It's a 10-point spread from what I understand last I checked. The 49ers look like the best team in the NFL. They're 2-0, just steamrolling people. While the Giants are 1-1, coming off of a impressive comeback win against the Cardinals.
Was it?
Against the Cardinals. I mean, they're down 21 points or 27 points or whatever the number was, and they came back and won. But, Giants, 49ers, Thursday Night Football, who you got, bro?
The 49ers. To me, I heard this from Stephen O of Sportsline on CBS. Great follow on Twitter, by the way. He brought up a good point, was saying like, if this was on Sunday, this is probably a 14-point spread. I think the 49ers can name their number here. The offensive line for the Giants is, it's still an adventure. I mean, you would hope that, that Thomas is going to be able to play. He didn't play last week because of the hamstring issue. But Evan Neal, like, it's still an adventure on that side of the line. This is an elite pass rush. The 49ers as well too. Like they want to run the ball. They're going to establish the run. Even though I think they want to get more of Elijah Mitchell in to take some of the wear off of Christian McCaffrey, but they're facing a Giants defense that can't get any pressure on the quarterback. They haven't gotten any sacks this year, and they give up almost 5 yards a carry to opposing running attacks. So I think this is going to be the 49ers cover this easily is one of my best bets. And, to hit on the Giants side real quick, like they were 6-point favorites last week. Like that's how much lack of respect the sports books gave the Arizona Cardinals. And I've said it all week. The Arizona Cardinals should have won that game, but then Scott Bidwell went down to that locker room and said, hey, keep your eye on the prize. We're collapsing for Caleb here, Caleb Williams. So take the dive, take the loss. This is what the Giants are. I mean, they went 6 quarters before they scored a point. Like
60-0. They got outscored 60 points to 0 points before
that is absolutely
before the Cardinals started tanking.
That's insane. And all we've heard all offseason from New York Giants fans, and I'm not just picking on your brother, Jay. I've heard it from everyone calling in WFAN too, is, oh, man, the Giants are really going to surprise people. We're going to make a big run for the NFC Beast. The NFC Beast is back. No, I mean, sure. The Commies are 2-0. The Eagles are 2-0. And Dallas is 2-0. But, like, you're like that meme from Grown Ups where you're like the daughter with like the 1950s bathing suit and the swim cap. Like nobody wants anything to do with you. Like just go back in the corner. I know they didn't travel back home to go back out west. They've been hanging out in Arizona the whole time. But I have no faith in this offense. I think the 49ers are going to roll. And that's them rolling with Elijah Mitchell probably getting more work. And Brandon Ayuk probably not getting a whole lot of work because he left that Rams game with a shoulder injury. but like there's nothing about this revamped Wink Martindale defense that they haven't gotten any pressure on the quarterback. So no, give me the 49ers all
You know who's
day.
been a complete disappointment so far is Kayvon Thibodeau. Like
Yep.
Kayvon Thibodeau for the Giants. This is year 2, and I was having this conversation with my brother last night. Like, he's a Giants fan. It might be a little too early to use the B word, which is bust, obviously, for Kayvon Thibodeau. But if we're a year and a half in, let's say we're 4 or 5 more games into the season, and he's had 18 starts underneath his belt, and he still is looking lackadaisical, looking like he can't pressure, looking like he doesn't really care or engage on the sideline, like the video was showing him not celebrating with his teammates.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kayvon Thibodeau is definitely a bust. But listen, overall, I agree with you, Puma. Like, this thing's gonna be a bloodbath Thursday night. I think the 49ers are gonna steamroll. 49ers right now are the best team in the NFL. Like, top to bottom. I know Dallas got that amazing defense, but I think top to bottom, defense and offense, with the scheming of Kyle Shanahan and everybody they use, I mean, like, 49ers big. I think this thing would end with like 14 points at the end of the day. Like, I would take the 10 points and the 49ers.
Yeah, opposing Chris ain't wrong. Front of the pod, George Kittle masterclass coming. I can feel it. Absolutely, Chris. Like, absolutely. Like, fire up everybody you got at DFS or anytime touchdown. But no, it's going to be ugly. And let's go Niners. Faithful to the Bay. Let's go.
Go Niners. All right, let's move on to a team near and dear to your heart: the Denver Broncos versus the Miami Dolphins. A lot of different angles here. The Dolphins are coming off of a win against the Patriots. We just touched on that game a few minutes ago. And the Broncos are coming off of a loss against the Commanders, which for the most part, they were in command of that game. They were up like, I forgot what the number was at halftime, but they were steamrolling the Commanders, and then they came back and lost that game. So, a couple of different angles here. But the first thing I want to start with is, just how long is a leash for Russell Wilson? Because now you're starting to see Sean Payton. He's chirping a little bit. Sean Payton is going into the press conference after these games. He's kind of needling Russell Wilson a little bit. He's kind of pushing the buns a little bit, which, I get it. Russell Wilson has been, fairly abysmal in the second half of these games, the first 2 games so far. But I also want to bring up the fact that Sean Payton himself hasn't performed well as well. Like, the clock management hasn't been there. Some of the decisions he's made hasn't been there. So I know he's pointing fingers at Russell Wilson, but sometimes you gotta look at yourself as well, Sean Payton. Now, ultimately, he's a head coach. He can make the decision. He can do whatever he wants to do, right? So let's say, he's not happy with Russell Wilson next couple of games. Just how short is this leash for Russell Wilson?
Oh, I think by week 8 it's going to be a little interesting if we're still having these problems here. But I mean, Sean Payton put his ass in the jackpot when he did this, pretty much sit down with USA Today and was blasting the previous coaching regime. And I mean, he's essentially doing the same thing Nathaniel Hackett did.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, Puma, because he basically said the coaching sucked last year, and this year for the Broncos, the coaching sucks.
Yep. It's brutal. And it's like the personnel groupings aren't going out right. And he's trying to say like Russell Wilson needs to wear a wristband.
Yeah.
And, he was throwing, Vance Joseph under the Greyhound too, about how the defense wilted away down the stretch.
Was Sean Payton always like this? Like very, very conniving, very Weasley? Like, come on,
I don't remember him being like this, but at the same time, like how often did the Saints have like slow starts? I mean, the first year he got there was essentially a free pass, in my opinion, because they just got Drew Brees. They just went back home after Katrina and the whole Superdome was redone. But I honestly, like, week 8, you might see Jared Stidham if he's still sucking. Wow. But I mean, he made it kind of perfectly clear, laying things out. Like, he's trying to put as much real estate between him and Russ, being like, listen, it's not me. And, I just came in here. The quarterback is still the problem. To me, this is, kind of 50-50. I thought the beginning of the end was last year when we started to see Russ do these not Russell Wilson things. And hey, you want to let Russ cook, and he can't even cook ramen noodles. I mean, we had, he had that Hail Mary, and then it the 2-point conversion didn't fall their way, whether or not that's passing interference, whatever. The commies got hosed on one last year. So I guess like that bird came home to roost. But like for this game preview, like like the Dolphins are finally home. It's going to be like 90 degrees with 200% humidity. The visitor bench is going to be directly in the sunlight. Like they're going to be cooking out there. The spread is, 6.5, 7, depending on what book you're getting at. There's questions about Jalen Waddle. He's in a concussion protocol right now. But if he's good to go, which I think he will be, like it sounds like he's making like okay progress in his recovery. It's just going to come down to whether or not the independent neurological specialist signs off on it, as well as the Dolphins medical staff sign off on it. But all signs point to him possibly playing. But even if he doesn't, it's like Cedric Wilson out there with Tyreek Hill, and like, yeah, sure, Patrick Surtain the second will be on Tyreek Hill. Like, I mean, we saw what Tua did with what the defense was giving him with the running game, and even with like Durham Smythe and Craycraft. So, I mean, I'm personally laying it with the Dolphins. I think it could possibly get ugly, and if they lose on the road, they go 0-3, and it's an ugly loss. Like, good Lord, I would definitely love to listen to Denver Sports Talk Radio that day.
Yeah, I'm actually going to roll with the Denver Broncos here. I think they are close, man. Like, they're putting up some good points. There are a couple of things they've got to clean up here and there. The communication aspect between, Russell Wilson and Sean Payne has to be cleaned up. But I mean, call me crazy, but I think they're almost there, man. Like, that defense hasn't played up to billing from last year. Last year they were just amazing. They were like keeping everybody under 17 points. This year they're giving up 35 points to Sam Howell, which is unfortunate. But I think they're gonna be able to correct it. I think with Jalen Waddle being in concussion protocol and the fact that Tyreek, can be negated a little bit with the bracket or double coverage or whatever it is, as long as you don't play that stupid ass defense that Brandon Staley played with the Chargers in week 1. I wouldn't be shocked if somehow the Broncos pulled it out, especially it being the last little straw of the season for them. They got to win this game to keep on keeping on. But I wanted to ask you real quick, just because you're a big Tua fan, and it looks like there's a lot of hype around Tua right now. Is he a legit MVP candidate or not?
I mean, personally, I think so. But like the narrative nowadays is, well, if you can't throw the ball, to the other end zone, then you really just don't deserve any consideration for anything. Probably not. I think he's a dark horse candidate personally. So the common tag is, well, if Tua could stay healthy, yeah. Well, yeah, if Patrick Mahomes could stay healthy too, like he'll be an MVP candidate as well. Lamar, if he could stay healthy, he'll be an MVP candidate. But yeah, I mean, I think so, Jay. I mean, who else could it be right now? I mean, Jalen Hurts has kind of stumbled out of the starting block. Joe Burrow, we're going to get to him in a minute. Like, he's had his own little issues going on. Mahomes is 1-1. Trevor Lawrence is 1-1 right now. I mean, right now, like, he's 2-0. Yeah. Like, it's him and Hurts, and right now Dak Prescott is 2-0 as well too. But the way he functions in this offense, and the way that this team, he's starting to show like that leadership quality that's actually starting to come out more on the national scene. Like, I've heard a lot more of it from like the beat reporters, obviously down in South Florida, but like on a national level, when they're talking about how he's really taken over like this locker room, like, yeah, he's putting up the numbers. Like, he's, top, most pass yards right now in the NFL through 2 weeks, which granted, it's the smallest sample size possible. It's 2 weeks, but that's something that you definitely have to start taking that into consideration, is like he's functioning in this Mike McDaniel offense, and his comp the whole time since coming out of the draft is he's like a Drew Brees type of character. Well, let's not start dinging him for being like Drew Brees now that he's in the pros.
Well, I did see a very interesting change in philosophy, and maybe you can speak to this more because you're a Dolphins fan. I did see this year, and let's take the Patriots game example. This past week, he was only sacked one time, right? And he was only sacked one time, but he still only had 1.9 seconds to get out of the ball. Like, he was the most pressured, quote unquote, from the advanced analytical stats over the weekend. He had the least amount of time to throw, but the scheming and the way to get the ball out so quickly is negating those hits on Tua. Like, I feel like Mike McDaniel went back to the drawing board in the offseason and said, no matter what, we're not getting this kid hit, so we're getting the ball out as soon as possible. And even when you have a decent defense in the Patriots providing pressure on him, they still were able to get the ball out immediately, and on top of that, only one sack for that whole game.
And the other thing too, Jay, is what defense is he facing all the time in practice? He's facing Vic Fangio every day. Every day. And I've been saying all offseason that Vic Fangio being on this coaching staff was probably the biggest addition in the offseason for this team. So if he's starting to sharpen his skills against a Vic Fangio defense, and now he's like translating it to actual game film, like, good Lord have mercy. Like, this team, again, if I get so pissed at this.
If
He could stay healthy, my hand got caught in the mic stand over here, getting all fired up about this nonsense. If he could stay healthy, imposing Chris, a good question, firing off in the chat, love it.
I like it.
So, question for MVP: if they can remove that player and still get results, is that player actually the most valuable?
Well, I mean, if you removed, Tua out of the lineup last year and you put in Teddy Bridgewater and Scott Thompson, they were crap. Like last year, they looked absolutely horrible. And this is the one thing that kind of bugs me a little bit with the whole Tua conversation. Like we have seen that offense last year with Tyreek and Waddle look like dog shit with Scott Thompson and Teddy Bridgewater. So, I think there's more to it than just the dink and dunks that people pretend like Tua does all game long. There's more to it. There's leadership. There's a command. There's a feel for the offense that he has that other quarterbacks don't simply have in that offense.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And all right, last game of the preview slate for us, the Rams versus the Bengals on Monday Night Football. Lots of storylines coming out of this one. Joe Burrow might not be playing. He's hurt. The Bengals are 0-2. His calf is apparently tweaking from what I understand, and there's a chance he might not play on Monday night. So who got to win this game, bro?
Dude, I got the Rams. It's prime time. Yeah. They're traveling across the country, but with all these questions about the calf of Joe Burrow, and it's the one that he aggravated at the start of training camp, and that's why he hasn't had a whole lot of reps with the team. This is kind of why Jamar Chase wanted him to just sit out the first couple of weeks and just make sure he gets right. Yeah, just give me the Rams. The Rams have been, like, to me, one of these biggest surprises in the NFL. I mean, I'm personally surprised because I thought, Matthew Stafford was like, okay, like, you sold out to get the Super Bowl, and now Matthew Stafford has like a neck injury and the elbow problem going into last season. And oh, look at that, Cooper Kupp, 30-plus-year-old or 30-year-old wide receiver with recurring hamstring issues.
They've got that Pokemon wide receiver now.
But they got Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua, and they still got Tyler Higbee there. And we're kind of seeing, like, it's weird to say, like, we're seeing a resurgence of like Aaron Donald to a certain extent, because like last year, like nobody really said his name. Like I don't know if maybe he was just like not into it last year. I know he was kicking the tires and possibly retiring until the Rams showed up at his house with like a Brinks truck and said, "Hey, like get in, loser. You're gonna get this cash too." But I mean, he's been wreaking havoc on the defensive line, and with the calf injury, you have Jamar Chase saying, "Well, we need to take more shots down the field." Yeah, Jamar, that's great that you want to take shots down the field. But to your point, Jay, like you can't take shots down the field if you can't push off that leg and that calf is giving you issues. And now you want him to stand in the pocket where his offensive line has been dinged up a little bit, and now he can barely move with three-time defensive player of the year
bearing down on you. Yeah, you got Aaron Donald bearing down on you, and you can't protect yourself. If they roll him out there on Monday night, it would be negligence by the Bengals organization. Simply put, I mean, we both understand that Rams are going to win this game. We're impressed with the Rams. Probably Joe Burrow is not going to be starting. If you roll him out there, that's negligence. Now, the question I want to ask you, Puma, is let's look at long term here, right? Let's see what the Bengals schedule looks like here moving forward. And I was looking at this earlier today just because, they have a bye week in a few weeks now. I would sit them out for the next 4 or 5 weeks. Like truthfully, honestly, like there's a couple of games that they can win, but if I'm them, I'm sitting him out as long as I can, just so you can have him for maybe down the stretch if you guys can win a few games, or depending on what happens next year, you can bring him back for next year as well.
Mm-hmm. So what's the schedule? You have the schedule up? Like
yeah, let me pull it up real quick. I've got that right. I was looking at it earlier today. Let's see. So here we go. I got it. So here's the Bengals schedule, right? Can you see it?
Yeah, I got it right here. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got Bengals and Rams, right? Obviously, that could be a loss there, right? Bengals and Titans, man. Like, I don't know. Like, the Titans haven't looked that impressive. You can potentially win that game. I mean, you can definitely win against the Cardinals, right? Let's see here. You've got, October 15th. You've got the Seahawks, right? And then you've got a bye here, right? So the bye comes after the 15th. Do I have that right or no? When does the bye come into play here?
I think so.
Yeah, so 15th. Yeah, so that's 2 weeks between games there. So you've got 4 more games here, right? So let's say they squeak out 2 wins somewhere along here, right? That's not far fetched against the Cardinals, and maybe you got lucky bounce against the Titans. Now you're looking at what, 2-4 to start the season? Is my math right here, right? Or 2-6, right?
Yeah.
So 2-6 to start your season, and then you have the bye week. I mean, at that point, you can come back and go on a run if he's healthy. Like 2-6 is not that bad, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I can buy that. The only issue is like the backup quarterback has never had like a start. Like he is definitely green behind the ears. But I mean, you just paid this man. You made him now the second highest paid quarterback in NFL history because they restructured Mahomes' contract. But for the Bengals, it would behoove them to sit this guy, especially when you've seen what happened to Aaron Rodgers like last week with the calf injury.
Yeah.
And that was also the same calf that he tweaked at training camp as well too. I mean, Joe Burrow has historically had slow starts to the season because he hasn't had a full training camp. Like, yeah, it sucks to miss him, and you potentially are looking down the barrel of an 0-3 start. But weird things happen in the NFL. Like, it's not beyond the realm that, hey, like maybe the Rams come crashing back down to earth, traveling across the country in prime time, and they squeak out a win. But, I agree with opposing Chris here. Like, sitting Burrow seems smart analytically, but not good from a PR standpoint. You're not going to sell tickets that way. But, like, for the long term, to protect the investment, I would sit him this week. And I think that's what the betting market is expecting, because this game opened up in a 6.5-point spread. And I think it was that Sunday, or maybe it was yesterday, that spread came crashing down to 2.5.
Let's see what it is right now. So right now the spread is 1.5 for the Rams on DraftKings. Can you see this, by the way, on your screen?
Yeah, I got it.
So I got Rams Bengals at 1.5.
Yep. So, wow. I mean, a lot of money's coming down the Rams side because they're expecting, Joe Burrow to potentially miss. So, I mean, this is one of my bets. I got this early. I got the Rams plus 2.5.
Let's roll right into this, man. We've got Puma bets rolling. Let's get the Puma bets going.
So for the Puma bets, like I just said, I got the Rams at 2.5 earlier today before I started losing the number. I actually got that off of FanDuel. DraftKings was hanging out at 2. But if it's starting to seem more likely than not that Joe Burrow is going to miss this game, this spread is going to swing, and the Rams are going to be probably favored by, 1. It'll essentially be a pick 'em. But I want to be out in front and potentially get points with the Rams at this point. So that's one of my best bets this week. The other one I got in earlier yesterday, actually right after Monday Night Football ended. I got the Titans +3 against the Cleveland Browns this week. It originally opened at 4. I was holding off on betting that game, kind of hoping that the Browns would, really handle the Steelers and that number would go up, but it did the opposite. It went down 0.5 point. So I got the Titans at +3.5. Road dog, home dog, it doesn't matter. Mike Vrabel will drag this game out and drag the Cleveland Browns into the mud and keep this game close and, take it from the top of the show. Like, to me, Deshaun Watson is just a guy, and this pass rush for the Titans made life really uncomfortable for, the social media quarterback known as Justin Herbert. So imagine what they're going to do with a quarterback that's been holding on the ball for way too long. So I'll take the Tennessee Titans +3.5. The other one I got for the NFL this weekend, like I said, I got the Miami Dolphins -6.5. Just go back maybe 20 minutes and listen to that game preview. And then I got over 46 in the Falcons-Lions game this week. I mean, week 1 aside, the Lions just gave up 37 points to the Seattle Seahawks, who Geno Smith just threw the ball 45 plus times in overtime, and they were without their starting offensive tackles. Granted, C.J. Gardner-Johnson missing probably the rest of the season with the torn pec is not going to help anything. This secondary, to me, is going to come crashing down to earth a little bit. Yes, the Falcons are a run-first team, but we saw Desmond Ridder actually move around the pocket, actually, extend plays out with his legs, scored a rushing touchdown. But he also started finding his playmakers a little bit, notably, Drake London. He found him in the end zone for a passing touchdown. And Bijan Robinson is just such a special running back coming out of Texas. So they're going to find different ways to get him involved in the offense. I think this has the potential to be a sneaky shootout. So I got this at, like I said, I believe it was at 46. Some books probably have it at 46.5 now. And then just to throw in some college, Jay.
Let's go.
this is probably, you can speak more toward it. This is probably one of the better weekends for a college football slate. I got Ole Miss going on the road to Tuscaloosa, getting 7 points against Alabama. To me, this spread is too big. Ole Miss, in my opinion, probably should be favored at this point. They have one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, which isn't really saying a whole lot because I think the SEC quarterback play is kind of on the downward swing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But you have all this, turmoil going on in Alabama of like, Lane Kiffin is saying the defensive coordinator for that team actually isn't calling the defensive plays. And they have this, fiasco going on at the quarterback room with, is Milroe actually going to start, or is it one of these other two guys? They barely beat USF last week with the backup quarterbacks trying to, win the starting job. They gave Milroe the job back. This is probably Nick Saban's last year. He just doesn't look into it, in my opinion.
Nick Saban's last year? Where the hell is
I
it
think
coming
so.
from?
I think
Really?
so. That's what a lot of people are starting to say is like Nick Saban, this potentially could be his last year in Alabama.
What's he gonna do? Go sell Mercedes Benz down there or something? Like,
I mean, he was really putting on the lip service, trying to convince people to let a 2-loss team into the playoff last year. So, he's got the PR skills, but I mean, this is what happens, Jay. Like, you have a bad offensive, not even a bad offensive line by SEC standards, but like, the quarterback play is down. Like, you don't have Bryce Young saving you anymore. You don't have Tua saving you anymore, or McCorkle Jones and other first round draft picks at the skill position players to kind of cover up some of the warts here. All the throwing the football with all three of these quarterbacks has been a bit of an adventure in Alabama. So give me Ole Miss on the road getting 7 points. And then the other one, we're going off of the beaten path here. We're going to go over 52.5 in Liberty versus FIU. Yeah, that's right. Liberty FIU. So
wow. Out of all
Liberty,
the games this weekend, that's the one you pick, huh?
Even, we're going to get back to it. There was a slight edge with this one, but
there's Ole Miss, Alabama, there's Ohio State, Notre Dame, there's Iowa, Penn State, there's amazing games.
Jay, you gotta
Liberty
follow,
FIU, huh?
You got to follow Puma Bets on Twitter to see what my latest picks are. You got to tease it so people come back. Okay, but anyways,
all right. I'm sorry. I'm not a master teaser over here, okay?
We're going over 52.5 in Liberty FIU. All right. So Liberty here, Hugh Freeze leaving for the SEC, going back to coach Auburn. Like, this team is averaging almost 40 points a game through like 3 or 4. I think they actually had a week 0 game. So through 4 weeks, they're averaging almost 40 points a game. FIU in their last home game against North Texas, that total combined for like 86 points. So if I'm going to get like 40 points from, Liberty with a transfer quarterback from Tennessee, I just need a little bit of lift from FIU. Let's go. Like, mash that over 52.5. So those are my Puma bets right now. But like I said, a little tease on the top. If you follow me on Twitter at Brando_Puma, is it still Twitter or is it X? Whatever it's called.
Whatever it is.
You follow me on there. You type in hashtag Puma Bets in the search bar, and it'll bring up, more than likely, it'll bring up all of my action that I have from the previous weeks, and then what I have going on this week as well, too.
A quick question for you before we head out of here, Puma. I'm a big Ohio State fan. My Buckeyes this week are traveling up to Notre Dame to play the Fighting Irish. What's your thoughts on the fact that Notre Dame is only +3 at home? Because on paper, both these teams are fairly evenly matched, right? I just thought this spread would have been bigger with Notre Dame being at home. And truthfully, to be real with you, I think Notre Dame's a better football team. So what are you thinking there? Is like Vegas trying to entice you to bet on Notre Dame or what?
I think so. I mean, I think it really just comes down to they have more faith in the Ohio State offense with like,
and we all do, right?
Even with like, you have Kyle McCord back there, but you have all these like studs at the skill position players. And, they're probably looking at what happened last year, which granted, it's not the same quarterback, right? They had a transfer coming at Notre Dame.
No, they had Sam Hartwell coming from Wake Forest, I believe.
Yeah. So it's a different quarterback back there. The offense from Notre Dame, from what I've seen from a little bit, looks, competent. So like, I think they could probably keep it close within 3. But I'm just going to sit back and watch that game and enjoy it. I don't really want to bet either side. But I mean, if we're going to go last year, I mean, no, I think Notre Dame covered. I think they kept it close because their defense showed up, but they just couldn't put points on the board.
Now, are you going to take my advice and call out on Saturday from work? Because, this is the first Saturday with like 5 monster matchups, like Notre Dame, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Alabama, Colorado, Oregon. There's like so many other ones. Like, you've got to understand, Puma, this hasn't happened. I think that was like since like 2015, where like so many ranked teams were playing each other. So it's been an 8 year, bro. It's been 8 years since this happened. I think you should take your time. You should call out sick with the Rona, and then just enjoy football.
I love how you're putting my business on Front Street on YouTube when some of the people I work with actually follow the page. So, well, cat's out of the bag.
I guess you're gonna call out now, huh?
Nope. Nope. I'll be there, but I'll have like the laptop set up and everything. But Jay, speaking of Colorado, let's touch on Colorado.
No. I'm Colorado now, bro.
No, let's touch on Colorado real quick because
Coach Prime. I'm tired of turning around and seeing Coach.
Yeah, but hear me out. If the YouTube algorithm is going to push Colorado content, I will shill for Colorado content at this point. But I mean, they're a 21-point dog going up to Eugene. What's your take? Because I'm saying lay them with Oregon. I think it's going to be a very long day at the office with Coach Prime. Do you believe? Well, I don't believe, Prime. You barely eked out a win against Colorado State. If it wasn't for Novell clamming up and coaching not to lose instead of coaching to win, you guys would have lost big time. Well, not big time because it was a close game, but Norvell got way too cute.
I said this earlier a couple weeks ago. These 2 next weeks for Colorado are going to be the big litmus tests, right? Like you've got to go on the road and play in Eugene against the mighty Oregon Ducks, which are fast track, great football team, in my opinion. And then you come home the next week and try to play USC at home with Caleb Williams and the Heisman frontrunner coming in. Honestly, bro, I think they can lose both of these games. Like, I think they're going to be so outclassed, like not even just skill position wise, but in the trenches, these boys are going to push them around. And if they somehow squeak out a 1-1 record against these 2 teams, that's a victory, bro. Like that's a victory in itself because they're not going to go 2-0. More likely than not, they're going to be 0-2. But this is it, Coach Prime. Like everything you say, everything you talk about, all the hype around you, now is when you can actually prove it to us. Now, I'm not saying you're playing, Nebraska and Colorado State. Now you're playing the big dogs in Oregon and USC.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a stat that I think Colorado leads the nation in lost yards due to sacks. Like their offensive line is brutal. And, cheap shot or not, like Shedeur Sanders was taking shots back there against Colorado State. Like they were just pinning their ears back. Maybe their starting center will be back this week against Oregon, but no, it's going to get ugly. Like from a betting perspective, I know it's a big number. It's 21. So there's always a chance for like a backdoor cover here.
I would take Colorado in this though. 21 is a big number.
Like I would lay it because there's no Travis Hunter there. Travis Hunter is going to be out for at least, 3 to 4 weeks with what some people are calling a lacerated liver. But no Travis Hunter there, from a betting perspective, money line wise, like, yeah, if you want to put like a sprinkle on Colorado, sure. But like 21, like I think they're going to roll. I mean, Oregon drops 50 on defenses this season. So
they dropped 82. They put up a basketball score.
Yeah, exactly. So
that would bring this Coach Prime hype train to a screeching halt if like Oregon lays 60 on them. That'd be hilarious. All right, sir. Well, is there anything else you want to get to, or do you want to wrap it up?
I think I'm good. I'll do a couple of welfare checks on you during the Pats Jets game to see how you're doing.
Let's go.
But this episode,
Belichick.
So you want them to lose at that point. So
I guess you're right. I guess
this episode of the pod and previous episode of the podcast can be found on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts at, under Pro Football Radio Podcast, social media, Facebook, Instagram, Pro Football Radio Podcast, Twitter machine, or X, or whatever you want to call it, at PFR Podcast. I'm on Twitter at Brando_Puma, Jay Chima on the ones and the twos. The captain of the ship is at Jay Chima. Imposing Chris, keeping it real as always in the chat. Love it. And we'll see you next week.
Vaya con Dios.
Vaya con Dios.